How do you feel when you see a kennen flash ult?
I was so like I was like, oh my god, I think it's one. Like I was like,
I'm joined with Licorice after that banger of a series. Licorice, you got player of the game of the series. Now, I don't mean to be rude or to be condescending, but it does kind of feel like no one should have gotten player of the game or player of the series. That series. It felt like a lot of mistakes happening from both end, and not to take away from your play. I think you had a very good Cassante game, and I think that's probably why you got it. But what was going on in those games? It felt hard to track between just misplay after good play after misplay. It was very confusing.
yeah, I think, um, I mean, I think for the most part, like if you take away game five, it was like one team got ahead and then like won the game eventually, and then there was like a few mistakes and like a little mush in the middle, right? But for the most part, it was like one team got a lead and then like they threw once and then they won anyways. And then game five was just like, I don't know. That was a game. I mean, game five was just really hard. I think like the series means so much because the LCS is getting smaller and it's going to be really competitive for those like spots next year, and just like your season is going to end here, and it's just like it was a very stressful situation, and just like I don't know. I think that's why it was just all over the place.
It really felt like that. It felt like the stakes, the weight behind the series wasn't, hey, are we gonna make it to Worlds? Because probably Cloud, the top three, are making it to Worlds. It was more, are we going to have a job next year? And I can see that you felt the stress. I think Contracts himself was probably a player who will find a spot, also felt that way. So was this something that you felt because of Game Five, or was it something looming from before you started playing the series?
Definitely looming from before. I mean, just like I don't know. I think none of us have had a really great split, and if we had, then we wouldn't be where we are. So it's like it is very much like do or die. So glad we won.
I gotta talk about how you won that Game Five. How do you feel when you see a Kennen flash ult like a Bard ulted carries?
Bro, like I was so like I was like, oh my god, I think it's one. Like I was like I got Bard ulted. I think my screen wasn't even like totally on my screen. Like I was looking for Rumble, and then I got Bard ulted, and I went back to my screen, and then I saw Kennen flash on top, and I was like, oh my god, it's so good. Like like we like and then the fight was still close. Like I think we were like it was like really lost there. Um, but yeah, we won. I don't know. That was cool. Then I flashed in. That was cool. Yeah.
Thank you, I guess. Yeah, the number of times that happened from NRG this series was very strange because like last year these players, even this split, they weren't like making such big misplays. You had the Azir game, game four, Palafox just like shifting in and just standing there, almost pressing S. And then I think the game after game five on Corki, he like W's in and like gets one shot, even though they were like completely ahead. I mean, as a pro player who's had their ups and downs, how do you explain like things like that?
I mean, it's just stress, right? Like it's like people are under a lot of pressure, and so if they're not able to like metabolize it really well, which like happens to everyone sometimes, then they're going to either overplay or underplay. I think like they're going to either like because if you're not actually like reacting to what's happening, then you're feeling stressed that either you're not doing much, you're generally feeling stressed that you're not doing enough, right? In the game, you're like, oh, I should be doing more. So you're either in this place where you're probably like playing too safe and playing too cautious and not taking enough risks, or you're like, oh my god, I like need to get in there, and then that's when you see people like W forward. You're like, oh my god, I need to like play the game. I'm feeling really stressed, and then that's just where mistakes like that come from.
How do you get better at those situations? There are so few. Like, there's two playoffs. I guess next year there'll be three playoffs, like three splits. But there's so few opportunities to get these like live experiences to be able to get that. Like this core of NRG have been playing together for three years, which is a long time for any core. But yeah, I mean, you've been playing for longer than most of the other players. How do you get better at things like that?
I mean, it's really about just like self-regulation. Like being able to calm yourself down when your like heart rate's really high. being able to like deal with stress better. I think like for me personally, therapy has helped me a ton with that. Because I think like I don't know, like you were saying, like you don't get a lot of reps, but I think that like when you make a big mistake like that in a really important match, it's more something that you have to recover from more than better from it. It's like a big like stain on your career that like is gonna follow you around and you're just gonna have to like, I don't know, deal with it. So yeah, I don't know. I think like therapy, IMO.
All right, I do want to talk just more about the overall arching game. Um, uh, yeah, I guess I'll start from game one where they give you Senna. Were you expecting the fact that NRG would drop the ban and just kind of dare you to play Senna?
No. I actually tuned into Dokla's stream like 2 days ago, and I tuned in at the end of a game where he like lost to Senna, and he was like he played like some like clapping noises, and he was like, "Good job, Riot Games, you made Senna really broken." So like from that, I was convinced that they were just gonna permaban it, but um, I wasn't totally sure because in scrims like we didn't see other people first picking it, and then we started first picking it, and then other teams followed us after. So I don't know. I felt like more likely than not they were going to ban it, but then they gave it to us, so that was nice.
Yeah, I thought they had some sort of answer, but then the answer never came, and then they banned it the next time they were on red side. So I was like, oh, I guess they were just daring to see if you guys could play it. Um, Game four, there's like this lane swap where they're playing smaller, so they decide they don't want Renekton to like fall too far behind because I think you've been winning out on the swaps, and they have Smolder and Renekton. Is that like a thing you've seen before in lane swaps where you just have like it's not really a swap, it's like everybody just goes topside?
Yeah, I think T1 was the first team to do it, and they did it in the LCK. And basically, like one guy is like losing out when you swap, and so the way they did it is that their support is just not getting anything. So their support, like instead of the top laner running around and having no job, it's the support runs around and has no job, and then the top laner and the AD carry split the XP. So it's like it's a version of the lane swap that's going to get your top laner ahead, but it's going to put your bot lane a little bit behind. So it's like, yeah, like I should when they do that kind of swap into me, like I should be a little behind Renection and have a hard game, but their bot lane should have a harder game because Maokai has no XP.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering maybe it's like a smolder specific swap, or maybe it's just to protect the Renekton. Like I wasn't entirely sure.
It's generally for the top lane matchup, and you also do it when like bot lane's not super volatile. Like a level 2 Maokai is not that different from a level 3 Maokai or level 4 Maokai. So they're like, well, we can put him behind, and we think that having Renekton have more XP and like hit 6 first is gonna be bigger for the game.
Okay. Talking about your game specifically, and you were talking about how like the stress and the nerves and just the overarching like situation that you're in. Jensen was being picked on a lot. They were going mid with like Bard, with Skarner over and over. And when your mid laner is like 0-2 behind and it's just like very difficult situation for one of your carries, how does that affect you as someone who's doesn't want to do too much and like int, but at the same time, like you're in that dichotomy?
Uh, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I felt like I was like pretty with it today. So like I just did my job, did what I could. It's like, yeah, my mid lane's behind, so the game's gonna be hard. That's kind of it, you know? Like if I can help them, I will, and if I can't, then like I'll try to get ahead myself, and eventually it'll even out.
All right. It's always interesting to like get a behind the scenes perspective of the player, like what he's thinking, because sometimes I see the play and I'm just like, oh my god, no. But then how do you feel about it? You might just be like, oh, my mid laner's dead. That means I get an extra plate.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like, yeah, mid died. Game's gonna be harder. That's it. You know, there's really not much more to it.
All right, last question, just to on the same theme. What was going on in your mind when Dokla, like when you guys tried to dive Dokla when he was playing Kennen, and Vi just goes through the tower, he comes after you, you flash, you still die, you go for one. Was that like mental breaking? Was it frustrating, or was it just like you move on?
I mean, it was frustrating. It was just like, I mean, it was just a miscommunication between me and Spica because he thought I could get the wave in without help, and I was like, no, 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 I need help. He tried to dive, but then Kennen was too far forward at that point. So it's like, yeah, it's frustrating to like take a really winning situation and turn it into 1-for-1. But like, I don't know, whatever. Like Dokla played that well, and yeah, move on.
Yeah, I'm not fit to be a pro player. I would be raging. All right, man. Anything you want to say to the Dignitas fans who are very much believing in Dig season, I think?
Yeah. I don't know. Keep cheering for us. Seems like we'll have a rematch against 100 Thieves. I think that's the most likely turnout. So I think it'll go a lot better this time. Um, so yeah, keep cheering for us, and if we do really well, maybe we can go to Worlds.
I can't believe what I saw, man. Oh my god. Those games were very entertaining, games 3, 4, and 5, but at the same time, like just palafox, dhokla, like especially that kennen, it's gonna be called dhokla. Like if you do a crazy anyways, I don't want to be harping too much. That was a very fun interview. Probably my favorite interview of the split. I really, really enjoyed it. Especially not I don't go into it too often, but like the psyche behind playing like that. When he talked about why he thinks they might be playing so poorly or doing things like that, and the stress, and yeah, just I've done some competition before, like in terms of sport, and like when you're pushed to the absolute limit, when you're trying to push yourself against an opponent or just individually, like those stresses can lead to you trying harder or to you collapsing. Like physically, it's very different than like what do you do? Do you just like hold your keyboard or your mouse harder? Like that might make you less accurate. It affects your psyche a lot, especially in chess. Like I've experienced it in chess, for example. But I don't want to make this about me. I have an interview with Apollo, one of the coaches for NRG, and I thought it was a cool interview that's coming out tomorrow, or maybe the day after. I'm not entirely sure, but this is like I'm posting this right after the games. So hit that subscribe button because we got a lot of coverage for LCS playoffs and Worlds.